Do not dismiss what brought you here, because some moments enter your life wearing the disguise of coincidence, while quietly carrying the weight of destiny. Before another word reaches your mind, allow yourself to become completely present. Draw in a slow breath, release every distraction, and notice the silence surrounding you. That silence is not empty. It has been waiting for you. Long before this moment arrived, something beyond ordinary perception began arranging invisible pieces that would eventually place you here, listening to these words. Whether you can explain it or not, no longer matters. What matters is that a deeper part of you recognized this invitation before your conscious mind ever could. This message was never intended for everyone. It cannot be understood by those who rush through life searching only for entertainment or comfort. It cannot reach those who cling tightly to familiar illusions, because truth always feels uncomfortable before it becomes liberating. It belongs to those who have sensed an unexplainable stirring within themselves, those who have noticed that ordinary life no longer satisfies the questions echoing inside their hearts. If your thoughts have recently become more persistent, if your dreams seem unusually vivid, if symbols, memories, and quiet realizations have begun appearing with surprising intensity, then you have already stepped onto the path leading toward what is approaching. Thursday, July 2nd is far more than another square on a calendar. It represents a crossing point where the visible and invisible briefly draw closer together. It is a spiritual intersection where unseen forces invite greater awareness, asking only one question: whether you are willing to recognize what has been standing before you all along. Everything shared in this message exists for one purpose: to prepare you for that encounter. Stay with it completely. Allow yourself to become anchored in this experience, because once genuine understanding awakens inside you, it cannot simply be forgotten. A truth that has entered your soul never returns to silence. Over recent days, you may have sensed subtle changes that seemed impossible to explain. Nothing dramatic may have happened on the surface, yet everything beneath the surface feels different. Conversations carry unfamiliar weight. Quiet moments seem strangely alive. The constant noise surrounding everyday life has begun losing its influence over you. Things that once distracted you now appear hollow. Patterns that once felt comfortable now leave you restless. People whose presence you accepted without question may suddenly feel emotionally exhausting, as though your spirit has quietly stopped agreeing with energies it once tolerated. None of this has happened accidentally. While you were occupied with daily responsibilities, life itself has been carefully adjusting the energetic landscape surrounding you. Invisible changes have unfolded gradually, patiently preparing you for what Thursday brings into view. This preparation reaches beyond ordinary circumstances. It extends into the deeper architecture of your personal journey, where unseen alignments often shape visible experiences long before they become recognizable. What awaits is not a challenge that rewards intelligence alone. It cannot be anticipated through planning nor avoided through distraction. It is a deeply personal examination of awareness. It quietly asks whether you are ready to release an identity that has already fulfilled its purpose, or whether familiarity will persuade you to remain inside a version of yourself that no longer reflects your true direction. Most people will move through Thursday without noticing anything unusual. Their routines will unfold exactly as they always have. They will repeat familiar conversations, revisit familiar frustrations, and continue reinforcing familiar habits without realizing that something extraordinary has unfolded around them. They will overlook the invitation entirely, not because it failed to appear, but because they have not cultivated the inner sensitivity required to recognize it. This experience cannot be measured by the eyes. It belongs to perception beyond ordinary observation. It speaks directly to the soul. Those who have spent time confronting their fears, questioning inherited beliefs, healing old wounds, and allowing uncomfortable truths to reshape them will recognize the difference immediately. They will notice subtle shifts that others dismiss. They will feel an unmistakable pull toward a greater level of authenticity. If you continue listening now, if these words continue resonating somewhere beyond logic, then perhaps you already understand why this message feels so personal. You have always sensed that your journey would not resemble everyone else's. That feeling of being different has never been evidence that something was wrong with you. It has always been evidence that your awareness was developing along another path. At this very moment, life may appear unusually quiet. The stillness might even feel unnatural, as though reality itself has paused before revealing something important. Trust that sensation instead of resisting it. Every profound transformation begins this way. Before meaningful change arrives, there is often an almost sacred calm, a pause where time appears suspended between what has already ended and what has not yet fully begun. You're standing within that delicate space now, where conclusions quietly dissolve while new beginnings wait just beyond the horizon. Do not mistake this silence for absence. It carries extraordinary movement beneath its surface. Forces you cannot physically observe continue organizing circumstances with remarkable precision. Energy is settling into new patterns. Awareness is expanding beneath conscious thought. Thursday marks the point where everything quietly accumulating beneath the surface begins expressing itself with unmistakable clarity. It will not arrive through chaos alone. Often the deepest revelations appear with remarkable simplicity. They enter through an unexpected conversation, an ordinary observation, a sudden realization, or a feeling that refuses to disappear once it has appeared. During this preparation, you may also have experienced emotions that seem unfamiliar. Waves of sadness may have surfaced without an obvious cause. Moments of remarkable certainty may have been followed by periods of doubt that challenged everything you believed only hours earlier. You may have felt drawn toward solitude one day, then unexpectedly longed for genuine connection the next. Rather than interpreting these experiences as emotional instability, consider another possibility. Your inner awareness is adjusting to a broader perspective that your thinking mind is not completely integrated. Long-buried emotional patterns are resurfacing, not because they are becoming stronger, but because they are finally ready to leave. They return only long enough to become visible, allowing you to recognize what no longer belongs within the life you are creating. Thursday strengthens this unfolding process. It brings unmistakable attention toward whatever remains emotionally attached to a version of yourself that your soul has already begun leaving behind. Once that recognition becomes clear, pretending not to see it will no longer be possible. This approaching day does not exist to reassure comfortable illusions or preserve familiar stories. Instead, it arrives as a mirror, reflecting your inner reality without distortion, without excuses, and without allowing denial to soften what must finally be acknowledged. Such honesty can feel overwhelming because authentic self-recognition removes every place where avoidance once hid. Masks lose their purpose, rationalizations lose their power. What remains is simple, direct truth. Truth possesses a remarkable ability to reshape every part of life it touches. It quietly demands movement where stagnation once existed. It calls for growth where fear previously maintained control. It invites alignment between what your soul has always known and the choices you make each day. Once that reflection has been seen, returning to unconscious living becomes impossible because awareness permanently changes the one who receives it. Then, somewhere during Thursday, in a moment that may appear ordinary to everyone else, something will unfold that asks you to recognize exactly how far your journey has already brought you, preparing the doorway into everything that follows. Do not expect the defining moment to arrive wrapped in something spectacular, because the experiences that alter the direction of your life rarely announce themselves with obvious signs. More often they arrive quietly, hidden inside ordinary moments that nearly everyone else would dismiss without another thought. It may begin with a conversation that refuses to leave your mind long after it ends. It may appear as a realization that suddenly connects questions you have carried for longer than you realized. It may even come through a feeling so powerful that for a brief instant, everything inside you becomes completely still. In that pause, you will sense something impossible to ignore. It will not be something your eyes can fully explain, but something your spirit recognizes immediately. You will feel as though an unseen presence has reached beyond the physical world and gently touched your awareness. The experience will resemble remembering a truth you have never consciously learned, yet somehow have always known. That quiet recognition is the very moment everything has been leading toward. That is the measure of your awareness. The universe does not rely on noise to reveal what matters. It does not pressure you or demand that you respond. Instead, it patiently uncovers an opening and waits to see whether you are willing to acknowledge it. In that single instant, only one question truly matters. Will you trust what you feel, or will you allow the opportunity to disappear unnoticed? Thursday is not simply another day passing through your calendar. It becomes a dividing line within your personal journey. At some point during that day, an invisible crossroads will appear inside your own consciousness. One direction will feel effortless because it follows familiar habits, familiar emotions, and familiar patterns that have shaped your life for a long time. The other direction will seem uncertain, unfamiliar, and even uncomfortable. Yet hidden inside that uncertainty will be a quiet certainty, that resonates far deeper than comfort ever could. This turning point exists when no one else can observe it. It unfolds inside your private awareness through the decisions you make when no applause, recognition, or outside approval exists. During that moment, you are not merely deciding what to do next. You are deciding who you will continue becoming. One version of yourself remains attached to everything that belongs to your past. The other accepts the invitation, waiting beyond the limits of who you used to be. The universe does not attempt to influence your decision. It simply witnesses the direction you freely choose. As that moment approaches, something familiar will try to reclaim your attention. It will not arrive looking like an obstacle. Instead, it will disguise itself as comfort, as nostalgia, as the quiet voice encouraging you to remain exactly where everything feels safe. Old routines may suddenly seem attractive again. Relationships that appeared complete may unexpectedly return carrying emotions you believed had already been released. Doubt may quietly begin asking whether you have imagined this entire transformation, whether you have misunderstood what your heart has been sensing, whether any real change is actually taking place. See this for what it truly is. It is not a message about your future. It is the final reflection of an outdated version of yourself attempting to preserve its place. It is yesterday asking for one final chance to remain in control. Whether you surrender to that familiar pull or continue moving beyond it will influence everything that follows. Then, without much warning, understanding arrives. It does not slowly reveal itself over time. It appears with remarkable precision, dissolving confusion in a single instant. Suddenly you recognize a pattern that had always been present but remained hidden until now. Separate experiences begin fitting together naturally. The emotional heaviness you have carried, the uncertainty that has surrounded your life, the growing distance you have felt from your old identity, every one of those experiences begins revealing its purpose. You realize they were never random struggles. They were preparing your awareness for this exact moment. Such clarity does not appear by accident. It arrives because you have reached the point where you are finally capable of receiving it. Yet every truth carries responsibility. Once genuine understanding enters your life, it cannot simply be ignored. You cannot return to old illusions without immediately feeling that they no longer fit the person you have become. As this realization settles into your heart, another experience quietly begins unfolding. It is not a doorway you can touch with your hands. It is an opening within your own awareness that feels more real than anything physical. It carries the feeling of expansion, possibility, and a peaceful invitation toward a reality greater than the one you have accepted until now. That opening has always existed, but your previous perspective prevented you from recognizing it. Now your awareness has expanded enough to finally see what was always waiting before you. This is where the examination becomes even more meaningful, because crossing that invisible threshold requires far more than curiosity. It requires trust. It asks you to continue walking without demanding complete certainty about every step ahead. Many people will notice this invitation but never accept it. They will stand before it, sensing its importance, yet remain frozen because fear convinces them that uncertainty is too dangerous. But your journey was never leading you toward another comfortable place. It has always been preparing you to move beyond every limitation that has defined your past. As you stand before this unseen doorway, fear may suddenly rise inside you. Do not mistake its presence for failure. Fear often appears because transformation is becoming real. It may sound logical. It may present convincing reasons to hesitate. It may question your readiness, your resilience, your wisdom, and your ability to handle everything waiting beyond the threshold. Yet none of those questions exist to stop you forever. They exist to reveal the final attachments, keeping you connected to an identity that is already disappearing. Fear is simply the old self trying to protect a reality that can no longer continue. The instant you recognize its true nature, it begins losing its influence, because fear survives only while it remains misunderstood. Once awareness exposes it completely, it can no longer determine your direction. Every experience now gathers into one defining decision. To anyone watching from the outside, it may appear insignificant. It may seem like nothing extraordinary has happened. Yet within you, that decision carries extraordinary meaning, because it is expressed through action rather than intention alone. It is reflected by the direction you choose, the response you give, the opportunity you embrace, or the opportunity you allow to pass. Other people may never realize that anything important has occurred. You will know. Deep within yourself, you will recognize that your life has quietly shifted onto another path. This is where wandering without purpose comes to an end. This is where deliberate movement begins, even before every answer has revealed itself. The moment that commitment is made, an unmistakable change starts unfolding. It does not feel like an explosion or an overwhelming external event. Instead, it appears as a quiet lightness, a clearer mind, and a deeper harmony within your own energy. The change may be gentle, yet its reality cannot be denied. You become more present with every moment, more connected to your inner guidance, and more aware of something greater than your individual perspective. This is the response you have been waiting for. The universe acknowledges your decision by immediately adjusting the direction of your journey. Even though your surroundings appear unchanged, the transformation has already begun, because authentic change always starts inside before it becomes visible outside. From that moment forward, your external life gradually reshapes itself until it reflects the person you consciously chose to become. After this inner shift, the changes continue unfolding almost invisibly at first. The streets remain the same. The people around you appear unchanged. Daily routines continue as they always have. Yet beneath those familiar scenes, you begin sensing that the foundation of your reality has quietly moved, preparing everything that is about to unfold next. As this transformation continues unfolding, the world around you will begin revealing itself in ways you never noticed before. Conversations that once seemed ordinary will suddenly carry unexpected depth. A simple sentence spoken by a stranger may remain with you long after the moment has passed. Situations that once exhausted your spirit will no longer have the ability to drain your energy in the same way. Instead of reacting automatically, you will begin observing with a new level of awareness. Hidden connections will gradually emerge between experiences that once appeared completely unrelated. Events that seemed random will begin fitting together like pieces of a design that had always existed beyond your awareness. This is not imagination, and it is not chance. It is the quiet reconstruction of your perception. The universe is carefully reorganizing the foundation through which you experience reality, so it reflects the frequency you have now entered. The process is neither chaotic nor dramatic. It is deliberate, precise, and remarkably intelligent. During this adjustment, you may experience a strange combination of stability and uncertainty at the same time. One part of you feels more grounded than ever before, while another recognizes that familiar surroundings no longer seem to match the person gradually emerging from within. As your inner vibration evolves, your relationships naturally begin responding to that change. Without saying a single word, people around you may notice that something about your presence feels different. They may not understand what has changed, yet their reactions will quietly reveal that they sense it. Some interactions that once felt effortless may suddenly become uncomfortable. Conversations that previously flowed with ease may begin feeling shallow or strangely disconnected. This is not because you have failed or because anyone has intentionally turned against you. It happens because the level of resonance that once connected you is no longer the same. One of the deepest lessons of growth is recognizing that transformation often changes who can continue walking beside you. Certain people may unconsciously encourage you to return to the version of yourself they have always known, not because they wish to harm you, but because familiarity feels safe to them. Others may slowly disappear from your life without conflict or explanation because their journey no longer moves in the same direction as yours. Although these changes may initially resemble loss, they are actually expressions of alignment. Every meaningful path eventually asks you to release what no longer belongs, so there is space for what truly does. Not everyone who accompanied you through one chapter is meant to enter the next. After Thursday passes, you will begin noticing small moments that seem almost impossible to dismiss. These experiences will not appear as overwhelming miracles or dramatic displays. Instead, they will arrive quietly, with remarkable precision, exactly when your heart needs reassurance. You may repeatedly encounter the same numbers in unexpected places. You may cross paths with someone whose words answer questions you never spoke aloud. A phrase in a book, a line from a song, or an ordinary conversation may suddenly provide exactly the guidance you have been seeking. These moments are far more than coincidence. They become gentle confirmations that you are moving in harmony with something greater than yourself. The universe often communicates through patterns rather than declarations, reaching beyond the limits of logic and speaking directly to your awareness. The more present you become, the more frequently these confirmations appear. The more willingly you trust them, the more clearly their meaning reveals itself. They quietly remind you that every step forward is acknowledged, that your journey is supported even when the destination remains hidden from view. While these confirmations become more noticeable, another process quietly begins unfolding within you. The identity that once seemed inseparable from your life gradually starts feeling distant. The beliefs you defended, the roles you accepted, and the image you carried of yourself no longer seem to reflect who you truly are. At first, this may create uncertainty, because identity has always provided a sense of stability. When it begins dissolving, it can feel as though the ground beneath you is shifting. Yet what is happening is not the loss of your true self. It is the release of everything that prevented your true self from being fully expressed. Expectations placed upon you by others, limiting beliefs inherited through experience, and emotional conditioning accumulated over many years begin falling away one layer at a time. During this process, there may be moments when you wonder who you are becoming because the familiar version of yourself no longer feels authentic. Do not mistake that uncertainty for emptiness. It is the space created by expansion. It is the place where your genuine identity begins revealing itself without the weight of old limitations. Even silence begins changing its character. What once felt lonely or uncomfortable gradually becomes a place of peace and quiet understanding. Instead of trying to escape those silent moments, you begin seeking them. They become opportunities to reconnect with something that has always existed beneath the endless distractions of everyday life. Within that stillness, a different kind of clarity begins emerging. It does not arrive through external voices or dramatic experiences. It rises naturally from within, carrying a calm certainty that exists beyond ordinary thought. This is where intuition matures into quiet confidence. This is where you begin trusting your own inner guidance with a depth you may never have experienced before. As the constant noise surrounding your awareness fades into the background, something far more authentic takes its place. Once this awakening has begun, it cannot simply be reversed. Returning completely to the person you were before Thursday is no longer possible. Even if you attempt to repeat familiar behaviors or return to old emotional patterns, something inside you will immediately recognize that they no longer fit. They will feel unnatural because your awareness has already expanded beyond them. The movement forward has already begun. Although you continue making choices every day, those choices now arise from a completely different level of consciousness. You are no longer moving through life without awareness. Every decision now carries greater intention, even during moments when uncertainty still exists. Step by step, this momentum continues building, guiding you steadily toward the life that has been preparing to meet you, regardless of whether you fully understand each stage along the way. Then, somewhere beyond all the uncertainty, a quiet realization gently settles into your heart. It does not arrive as a dramatic breakthrough or an overwhelming revelation. Instead, it becomes an undeniable knowing that gradually fills every part of your awareness. You finally understand that none of your experiences were meaningless. Every emotion you struggled to explain, every season of confusion, every moment of unexpected clarity, and every difficult decision formed part of a larger pattern that had been unfolding all along. Nothing was orchestrated to control you. Everything was arranged to guide you. Looking back, you begin recognizing how every experience naturally prepared you for the next, how every challenge strengthened your awareness, and how every feeling carried a purpose that only now has become completely clear. When you finally begin looking back with new awareness, you will understand that every choice you made quietly redirected your journey long before you realized it. Every decision, whether it once appeared wise or uncertain, became another piece of the larger design that has been unfolding around you. As this realization settles into your heart, an unexpected stillness begins to emerge. It is not the silence that comes from inactivity. It is the peace that arrives when struggle gives way to understanding. You recognize that life has never been moving against you. It has always been moving with remarkable precision, carrying you exactly where your soul needed to arrive. The feeling of being lost slowly disappears because you finally recognize that every delay, every challenge, and every unexpected turn has been guiding rather than preventing your progress. Once that awareness becomes part of you, your entire relationship with reality begins to transform. By this stage, something inside you has become firmly established, yet it is unlike any stability you have experienced before. It is no longer built upon predictable routines or familiar circumstances. Instead, it grows from a much deeper place, rooted in conscious awareness rather than external certainty. The presence you carry now feels different. It is quieter than before, yet far more powerful. It no longer seeks recognition because it no longer depends upon anyone else's approval. Even without changing your words, people begin sensing that something about you has shifted. Your silence communicates more than constant conversation ever could. Your eyes carry a calm confidence that was absent before. Your presence itself feels grounded in a way that naturally influences those around you. This is what naturally happens when your inner life becomes aligned with your authentic direction. The need to search endlessly for reassurance fades because the confirmation you once pursued outside yourself has already been discovered within. Whether you consciously recognize it or not, this new state of being quietly begins affecting every environment you enter. As this deeper alignment becomes your natural state, the world surrounding you gradually starts responding in ways that cannot easily be dismissed. The changes rarely arrive through dramatic events. Instead, they unfold steadily, one experience at a time. Circumstances that once seemed permanently blocked begin opening in unexpected ways. Opportunities appear where previously there seemed to be none. Challenges that once felt impossible either dissolve naturally or reveal solutions that had remained invisible until now. This is not random fortune unexpectedly arriving. It is the natural consequence of living in harmony with the frequency you have chosen to embody. Your outer reality slowly begins reflecting the transformation already completed within you. At first, the process may feel almost unbelievable, yet there will be quiet moments when you suddenly stop and recognize that something fundamental has changed. You notice it in your responses, in the people entering your life, and in the opportunities appearing without force. Those moments become undeniable reminders that this evolution is not imagined. It is unfolding continuously, both within the visible world and within dimensions of experience that cannot be measured with ordinary perception. As your awareness continues expanding, your connection to your previous life naturally becomes more distant. The separation may not immediately appear through physical changes, yet emotionally and energetically it becomes impossible to ignore. Experiences that once defined your identity gradually begin feeling like chapters that have already reached their conclusion. You may revisit familiar places, reconnect with people from your past, or briefly remember the person you once believed yourself to be. Yet none of those experiences carry the same emotional reality they once held. A quiet certainty develops inside you, revealing that your spirit no longer belongs within those old patterns. This realization often brings two seemingly opposite emotions at the same time. One is freedom, born from recognizing how much you have grown. The other is grief, born from acknowledging everything that can no longer accompany you forward. Both emotions deserve their place because authentic transformation always requires releasing what no longer serves the life you are becoming. No one can fully embrace the future while refusing to loosen their grip on a past that has already completed its purpose. As you continue moving forward, another gift gradually reveals itself. You begin discovering a strength that has nothing to do with force, struggle, or constant resistance. It is a quieter strength born from clear understanding. Situations that once overwhelmed your emotions no longer carry the same power over you. Challenges that previously felt impossible begin appearing manageable because your relationship with difficulty has fundamentally changed. Instead of reacting impulsively, you naturally pause before responding. Instead of rushing toward immediate answers, you allow wisdom to emerge through patience. During these ordinary moments, you begin recognizing someone unfamiliar, yet deeply authentic within yourself. You have become a person guided by intention rather than impulse. This strength did not suddenly appear from nowhere. It has always existed beneath years of uncertainty, fear, and distraction. Now, those barriers have begun dissolving, allowing your natural resilience to become part of your everyday life. The more confidence you place in that quiet inner strength, the more faithfully it guides each step waiting ahead. You may have imagined that such a profound transformation would immediately reveal every answer about your future. Perhaps you expected your purpose, your direction, and every next step to become completely visible all at once. Yet life unfolds with far greater wisdom than that. The road ahead reveals itself gradually, one experience leading naturally into another. Every choice you make uncovers the next opportunity. Every courageous step opens another path that previously remained hidden. This is not evidence that something is missing. It is evidence that life has been designed to be lived through presence rather than prediction. If the entire journey were revealed from the beginning, the temptation to control every outcome would replace the opportunity to grow through trust. Instead, you are invited to remain fully present, allowing awareness rather than expectation to guide your decisions. In doing so, you move with genuine alignment instead of assumptions about what should happen next. Even after reaching this place, there may still be quiet moments when uncertainty briefly returns. A familiar voice may gently question whether everything you have experienced is truly real. It may ask whether you have misunderstood the signs, whether you have imagined the changes unfolding within your life, or whether you are genuinely following the direction meant for you. Do not become discouraged when this happens. These thoughts no longer carry the authority they once possessed. They are simply the final traces of an old way of thinking attempting to reclaim influence over a life that has already changed. They are not expressions of truth or intuition. They are only fading echoes left behind by the identity you have already begun leaving behind. The instant you recognize them for what they truly are, they immediately lose much of their power. Doubt cannot continue thriving inside conscious awareness. It survives only where confusion remains, and you no longer inhabit that same confusion. As more time passes, another quiet transformation becomes impossible to ignore. A lasting sense of inner alignment begins establishing itself so deeply that changing circumstances no longer determine your peace. Challenges will still appear because every meaningful journey includes moments of uncertainty and discomfort. Yet those experiences no longer shake your foundation as they once did. That foundation now exists within you rather than outside you. It has been built through awareness, strengthened through truth, and anchored by a connection to something far deeper than temporary conditions. This inner alignment gradually becomes the place you return to, regardless of what life places before you. It allows you to continue moving with confidence without demanding perfect outcomes before taking the next step. Instead of constantly reacting to changing circumstances, you begin flowing with them, understanding that every experience belongs to a much greater unfolding that continues revealing itself exactly when you are ready to receive it.